Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
So is your mic? Your mic's okay. So a few housekeeping notes. Our session is going to be an hour long. The format is going to be for the first 35, 40 minutes. There'll be just an on-stage discussion. And then we'll open up to take questions from the floor. The hashtags to use for this session are hashtag SMWLagos or hashtag SMW Broadcasting. And as mentioned to you, the session today is about the future of media. So, Chairman, it's an honor to be with you this morning. Thank you so much.
Pleasure's mine.
So before we begin any discussion about the future of media, one really has to begin with the past and where we've come from. So can you just share a bit more about your background and also your background and where media was when you started versus where media is now?
Thank you very much. That's like hitting the reset button. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Well, I've been in television all my life, and I started television broadcasting in 1977. That's a long, long, long time ago. I've been in the industry for 4 decades. I started out as a presenter on radio in one of the regional stations, that's Ogun Radio in Abeokuta. I had finished high school, and I wanted to go and further my education and to continue. And so I decided to go out of Lagos to the Abeokuta Continuing Education Center to prepare for my A-levels, which I did there. While I was there, I was trying to see how I could put body and soul together and pay for the fees of the center. So there was an announcement on radio that was casting for a drama. And I thought that was one quick way of making a few bucks. So I applied, and I was one of the cast. And that's where the whole journey started. After the play, the director of programs at that time called me aside and said to me that I had a good voice and that she would want me to do an audition to see if I could be a presenter on radio. And one thing led to another, and I became one. Started disc jockeying, and then all too soon I was reading the news on radio. After my high-level education, A-levels, I came back to Lagos, applied to the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, the external service, which is Voice of Nigeria. I also got taking, and that took up to a very good start. So I was on radio for 5 years, presenting the news, a network news reader on Radio Nigeria, and the Voice of Nigeria, the external service. And after 5 years, I thought I had enough of radio, and then crossed over to television. I was headhunted by someone from TV, the great newscaster Shola Omole, and I joined NTA, the Nigerian Television Authority. Before then, there were no satellites. During my own time, as I was growing up, we had the rediffusion boxes. You never know. I don't think you ever saw any of those. But now, when I moved over to NTA, I had this appetite in me to do things the way things were being done abroad. So I would read the news differently. And I tried my hands in reporting, directing, editing. I even forayed into engineering. I wanted to understand the whole gamut of broadcasting, because I've always had the idea that someday, sometime in the future, I probably would like to be one who will be at the helm of affairs in a broadcast institution. So I worked for 10 years on television, and then thought that I'd had enough. Because then CNN had come on board, satellites, the technology had also appeared, and I was restless. I had gone abroad a number of times. Each time I was on holiday, I went to the American Embassy and the British High Commission, and I told them that I wanted to sit in at any of the studios in London or in the US. And I was given the opportunity to be able to sit in and watch the newscasters. So I honed my skills doing all this. Once I left NTA, the industry was not deregulated. It was all public broadcasters, only NTA and the state broadcasters. And I left to set up a post-production outfit for the sole purpose of servicing international organizations and become the fixers, and that worked. And shortly after we started, the industry was deregulated, but then there was June 12th. So when June 12th came, the little business we had started almost went under. But you know, it's a long journey. Starting television, Channels TV took a long time because we didn't have the funds. So I went everywhere looking for money, looking for investors. Eventually, the time for the license to expire was knocking on the door. It was just a few more days for the license to expire, and I didn't want to lose the license. And
at that time, how long had Channels been?
Channels has not started at that time.
Okay.
That was Channels Incorporated, the parent body of Channels TV. This was in 1993.
Okay.
So once the industry was deregulated by the late the late president, the former president, Ibrahim Babangida, I applied for a license, and it was like a joke. But I got one. But we couldn't start until after 2 years.
Right.
And the only way we could start was to buy a small transmitter with the aid of the British High Commission, which gave us some little fund for us to be able to keep our license. Between then and now, the rest, to say, is history.
So the media landscape must have been very different when you first launched Channels Television. What would you say were the top sort of 3 differences between the media landscape when you started and the media landscape now?
First of all, there were no choices. The only choices that you had when I started were, when I started broadcasting, were the state broadcasters and the federal broadcasters. Mm-hmm. When the industry was deregulated, as you know, up until now, we still have analog television, side by side with some digital TV, all the cable or the satellite companies. Mm-hmm. What you do have is the broadcasting, which is a term that was affirming terminology, where somebody goes on the field and scatter the seeds, more like sowing seeds everywhere, which is broadcasting your seeds, and that's how the term came about. So it is from one single source to a lot of people. Okay. That's how the industry has grown until the disruption that is now upon us.
And what would you say the biggest disruption is at the moment to the Nigerian media landscape? If you were to tease a few, because there are lots of disruptions in the media landscape globally and across Africa, but specifically in Nigeria, what would you say were some of the biggest disruptions at the moment?
It's a far-reaching impact that it's having on the industry, in the sense that things are changing. We have to go to where the consumers are. The consumers have to determine when they want to consume their content, how they want it consumed. They would like to be able to pause when they're watching video. They watch it on any devices, all the mobile devices. So it's not the same old ball game anymore. So we can't just rest on just sitting in the studio and creating content and making sure that and thinking that through the airwaves everybody will get it. No, you've got to go to the consumers, and that's what's happening now. It's a question of consumer giving a greater consumer experience, making sure that people get what they want anytime they want it. That's a whole difference between what we're doing now and what's upon us. But you know, we in Channels and a few other stations have seen this and have decided that we're going to move to where the consumers are and trying to make sure that our content, cast our content to all the mobile devices.
So consumers, they're not a homogeneous group. There are many different categories within your consumers. So you have your millennials, you have your Generation Z, you have your baby boomers. How does channels make sure that their content is applicable to millennials, which is the majority of an audience that we have here, but still doesn't alienate some of the audiences that have grown up with you as Challenge has grown up?
One of the things we did, by the way, we started streaming before any other person in the African continent, and I dare say anywhere in the world. I mean, streaming in the sense that we took the whole television output, the whole transmission, and streamed it live before anybody. We did that way back, I think, in 2004, because we'd seen what was coming. And we decided that for us to be able to turn and create another curve because of the disruption that was forthcoming, there was need for us to set up a different body entirely. So what basically we've done in Channels is to create a digital company, which is called the International Digital Services, IDS Africa, to handle all our digital needs. And so we have our own apps. We have two apps that are doing very well. We have the largest repository of content on the Google data, holding our video content in the data store. We also have other apps like TV Now, which if you download, you'll see that you'll get a very good experience from it, because it aggregates content from every free-to-air channels, as many channels as you can get, and a few premium channels that are available. It's important for one to realize that because the world is changing, you cannot do things the way they used to do them. And that's why we decided that this company was needed, and they take care of all our needs. And we have some of the brightest guys that you can get on the African continent, if not the world, who are holding out in this organization and creating a lot of stuff for us. So when video comes, they're very present, you know, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm sure this is going on Facebook Live, even on our own website, and we're streaming this live. And so we take care of all the millennials because we know what their needs are. We're trying to incorporate AI, as a matter of fact.
Right, that was my next question,
yes,
actually.
into our workflow at this moment. And right now in Channels, we're building...
So how are you incorporating artificial intelligence into your workflow now? Because you mentioned earlier that you began streaming in 2004, which is very early to adopt streaming. So you're an early adopter of artificial intelligence. In what way is that now part of your business at Channels?
These are early days for the AI adoption for us. Yeah. What we're doing is testing it out with some of the apps that we have, particularly the app called TV Now, trying to see how we can have some analytics, see how people are watching us, who is watching us, what the demographics that there are available, and try and see how we can measure our offerings to suit their purpose, to suit their needs. That's what we're doing at the moment. But integrating AI is our next big thing for Channels TV, and we're going to do that. And I've given the guys a marching order that this must be done ASAP.
So this is Social Media Week, so let's talk a bit about your thoughts on social media in Nigeria in general, and also the very complicated subject of social media and fake news, which is fake news is a global concern, especially in the US, where it is I'm coming from today. So talk a bit about social media, fake news, and your thoughts about it, and Channel's role in that.
Well, for every good thing, there's a bad side.
Absolutely.
we'd all hope that social media, which was to democratize the way we consume our own video and content, was going to be a saving grace and going to give people a different kind of experience. That's happening. But what you do see is that there are quite a number of mischief makers who like to use these various platforms to foment troubles. You can run away from that. While it is true that the person who posts a story first is the first to post that story, if it's fake news, it is not news. But they're still making money. And they make money because of the fact that these posts go viral and people are clicking on them. And if they're on Google AdSense, there's some profit, some revenue streams coming to it, and they smile all the way to the bank. But I think what has to happen is for people to be able to check themselves. It's going to be very difficult because in any society, in any community, you have the good, the bad, and ugly people. The good will continue to do what's good. The bad will try to be bad. And those who are ugly will try and create a complete distortion of what's supposed to be. And this is what's happening. And it's so frightening what's going on. Some time ago, one of the online media, for instance, posted something attributing it to us. That we had said, we had credited a statement to one of the 7 ministers. Because we thought that the online company was supposedly one that should be taken seriously, it rattled us. And we had to, try and do an investigation and found out that it was all concocted. This happens, people Photoshop pictures every now and again. And sometimes when you read things on social media, you wonder why people can wake up in the morning, concoct a story, and try to create mayhem. And this is happening. So how to address that, it's a big question mark. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how we can do it. But I think there will be, the onus is on the greater number of people who mean well for the country and for the platforms to come together. I know there's a professional association to meet from time to time to discuss how things can take a better shape. As far as hate speech is concerned, there will be more of hate speech, hate speeches as we progress towards the elections next year. All you need to do is, and I want to suggest, is look out for those brands that are trustworthy. Look out for channels, for instance. Because the Financial Times of
London... You can
clap. The Financial Times of London has christened us a network built on trust. You couldn't buy that for $1 billion.
You couldn't. I mean, and I think, that speaks a lot, especially in... there is the perception that a lot of things that come out of Africa and or Nigeria can't be trusted because for different reasons, mainly perception reasons. But to be termed, built a brand that you can build on, a brand built on trust, along with CNN, whose tagline is news you can trust. So trust is definitely a huge consumer concern and a consumer demand as well. And how do you at channels really vet your news? So when somebody approaches you with a news item, a news story, a quote, etc., how do you verify it? What's the verification process? Because even the channel like CNN, they have had instances where they have been, unbeknownst to them, been given news that is actually fake. And that's damaged. That's had some brand reputation damage on their brand as a news organization. So how does channels deal with that? That's
a very interesting question because it's good to be the first to break the news, but that sometimes you
Right.
get the news and you need to really verify, is this true? And sometimes verification comes very late, especially in this part of the world where people are not forthcoming with information, especially from government officials. Because we have a network of correspondents around the country, we're able to, and stringers as well, we're able to move very fast, to get people on the road, working the phones, trying to see, those who have ears to the ground and those that you can trust to say, look, we need to confirm this. For the most part, we try to go to the source to
Right.
see if this is correct. And once we verify it, then we use it. Sometimes we get stories, and we hold on to those stories and not break them. They will be on the social media. Sometimes they are not. They are false. Sometimes they beat us to the stories because of the fact that once it happens and it is factual, that somebody can tweet right away. And that's why in channels now, as well as we try to verify our stories, we've turned the way we do things in channels by making sure that it's online first, digital first, before linear.
Right.
So that's the way we work in channels now. But having said that, verification of news poses a lot of challenges for us. But as much as possible, we must. One of the ethos is that we must make sure that news is factual, and we must verify before we put it out on air.
In addition to making sure it's factual and verifying it, how about balance? Let's talk about balance for a moment and the balance of news coverage. So, if we were to talk about the herdsman crisis that's happening here in Nigeria, taking that as an example, how has channels ensured balanced coverage of a news item, a serious news item that is serious and obviously regional based? How has channels ensured there's balanced news coverage of an item like that?
We thrive on making sure that at all times, in all we do, that we report all sides to an issue. The balance is that there's always two sides to a story. We say that there are many sides to a story. So let's get all sides. And so more often than not, except it is a social story in the sense that, look, somebody has been arrested or there's somebody who's doing drugs, we go and report those stories first. But once it has to do with other stories, we need to be able to get all the sides of the story. I'll tell you what happened. And this was before channels came to being. During the June 12 crisis, it was not popular among people that the elections were annulled. Down south, people hated that. But up north, people liked the fact that it was annulled. So in reporting such a story, you've got to take those two sides and then try and see who is going to give you a neutral point of view. And that's how we're able to cover, from time to time, our reportage.
So earlier when we were talking, you mentioned that you invest a lot in your...
And so let me talk about the herdsman crisis, which
okay.
I almost skipped. Yeah. For the herdsman crisis, as much as possible, we'll try to report what's going on. We actually...
Can you say you've been balanced in your reporting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. There's an issue that is brewing, which has to do with the killings in Taraba, where we've given the Meete Allah more airtime than anybody.
Okay.
We always invite them to channels, studios, and make sure that they come up with their own point of views. And we've done reports in all the areas that have been affected by the herdsman crisis. We actually dropped the name Fulani from the herdsman crisis.
And why did you do that?
We did that so that we don't color it, because we've learned to be as much as possible to be fair, because not all Fulanis are bad.
Of course.
So you do have those people who have infiltrated them who are creating the mayhem. But the fact is that people were killed in Benue, and we had to report that. That didn't go down well with a lot of people, but it had to be reported.
Of course.
When we were told to drop the story, we said, no, we couldn't drop the story because people have died. But the issue of Taraba was the one that really baffled everyone. I remember that we reported something on Taraba. There were some killings. But when the story about 800 people killed came about, we set out to go and find out where the people were buried. And those people who have lost their loved ones. We've not been able to find out that large number of grave sites. But there were some killings.
Of course.
And we're still reporting on that story.
And you'll continue to do so?
We're doing that.
Okay. So before we open up to the floor to ask questions, I wanted to there may be some people in this audience this morning who are budding journalists and would love to come and work for a station such as Channels. What do you look for in your young members of your team, especially considering the future of media, the future of channels, and investing in young talent?
The first thing I look for, I can smell.
I'm on your side, guys. This is a question for you.
I can smell out a very good and promising reporter from a mile off. But before I say anything, I think everyone, particularly if that person is a Nigerian, has a lion sleeping in him or her.
That's great.
And that's not a bull. That is the truth. Nigerians are perhaps one of the most brilliant races you could ever come across in the world.
Not that you're biased or anything.
Say again?
Not that you're biased or anything.
No. I know where you're from, but I'm telling the truth. Now,
I agree with you.
Now, I believe that for anybody who wants to work in Channels television, you must have the passion first. A passion for whatever you want to do. Being a journalist, if you want to be a journalist, or you want to be an editor or a producer or a news anchor, passion is everything. You must love the job. And then you need to be able to work hard, because hard work doesn't kill, it pays. And then, of course, you have a voracious appetite for knowledge and reading. If you're able to combine those three, see me after the session.
Did you hear that, guys? And I think one thing that I will add to that a friend of yours recently mentioned was that for someone like yourself, you've had not only just the passion, but you've been consistent over time, which is what I think has enabled you to have such a long career and enabled you to launch Channels, and for Channels to continue to grow and stay ahead of the curve as much as it has done in broadcasting across the continent. So I think consistency is also something that a good friend of yours described you as having very recently.
Let me just say that, for those of you who don't know my background, I come from a very humble background. You probably have seen it online. My father was a cook, not a cook in the real sense that you see it as a chef. It was just somebody working for, some Asians. And he used to have a bicycle which I used to ride when he was not going to work with it. My mother was a petty trader, and we all, 7 of us, shackled up in a one-room apartment, and that's how we grew up. I mean, I was one of those kids, not like the former president, but yes, like him, because at one time I didn't have shoes and I was going to school. And, I had to pay my way through after secondary school, through university, and I worked and went to university. And I went to university late. But the point I'm trying to get to is that if I can do it, anybody can. And this is where I get religious. Because God shines on everybody. The
Amen.
Blessings come from Him. And so, looking back at somebody who grew up in the Surulere area of Lagos in a one-room apartment, who at one point in time had nowhere to sleep because he had outgrown his parents' house and was shacking up with friends here and there, and was determined and was never satisfied with at any point in time where he was at any particular time. There was always the need for one to say, it can be better. And that's how what I thought of starting Channel TV with a small transmitter the size of a briefcase is against the competitors at that time who had transmitters 10 times, 100 times the size of this backdrop. It was like trying to start a transportation business. You buy a Keke Marwa and you go and park it beside ABC Transport and say that you're going to take them on and give them a run for their money. That's the kind of audacity that I want from you guys, because it is doable.
Thank you. So at this point, we'll open up for questions from the floor. Is there a microphone to hand to the audience? Can we get the audience a mic, please? Is there no mic for the audience? Okay, so we don't have a mic, so you're going to have to shout very loudly. I always have ladies first, so the lady with the blazer. Hi, good morning. You're going to have to speak very loudly. Oh, you have a mic. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
I wanted to say thank you to you. That's the only reason I came. I'm a first-time author, and I've been on the channel's book club show. Okay. And I mean, I didn't know anybody. I'd never written anything. I just sent it to the station, and I got interviewed. And I just wanted to say thank you, because it was at the time when everybody was saying bring some huge amount, you know, and that's just how it happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That's great.
Thanks.
Gentleman here at the front. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I like your stories.
That's just 1% of the story.
I know this.
I like your story. So when you were talking about a young guy that has to earn life, get a life for himself. So I was telling my friend, I said, I've been there. Okay. So my question is, I have a passion for, I long to work for channels. But my drive is, I have a passion for entertainment. So the question is there a goal for Channels TV to start a radio station? And then what have you been doing, to give a focus? Because I find that most of the things that were reported on channels are politics, mostly politics. So I felt like, is there a focus for the youth, in the aspect of entertainment, in the aspect of media, social media, and all that? And what has Channels TV been doing in order to groom young guys like me?
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you.
I love to work for that. I'll see you after the session.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me quickly
Chairman, answer.
Let me quickly answer that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is true that we're a news and current affairs station, and we report news about everything. News about entertainment is reported on channels, and what we did was to increase the content with regard to entertainment. So you have the entertainment news that comes up almost every day, and on the news as well. But having said that, we are on the verge of launching a multi-channel offering, online and on air. And that's, so you have, just as you have channels television news, you're going to have channels television entertainment. So that's one of the 30 channels that we'll be offering in the nearest future. So since you said you have passion, that's 1/3. We'll see what you do with the other 2, and then we'll talk to you.
Okay, this question, and then after this gentleman here.
Thank you very much. Was so inspired. I want to ask this question. Sir, are you satisfied with the various platforms your organization use live streaming?
Say that again, sorry.
Are you satisfied with the platform you are using right now for the live streaming?
Are you satisfied with the live streaming platform?
Yes. Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
I can never be satisfied with what I do. I'm always trying to improve on what we have. Because every day that ends is an experience. So we always look at what we did on that day, what we've done, and what were the errors, and how can we improve for the next day. So satisfaction is never a word in channels. It's what can we do better? Haven't experienced what we did yesterday. So we'll continue to improve that so that the consumer can have a better user experience. But I must say that I give kudos to the guys who are in charge of the streaming department, because they are doing a damn good job.
Okay, the gentleman here in the red jacket.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you. I have a question and I have a contribution to make. My name is Diamond. I'm an awareness personnel, and also I'm a programmer. Now, Channels TV is an awesome TV, by the way. Trust me, it's something I really, really love so much. I don't know what to say. Other TV stations are cool, but I just love Channels TV myself. So that's why I'm on the front seat. So, right, I have a value to bring to you, sir. And the reason I said it's a value, it's because it's going to really answer the question you did not answer. The question she threw to you, you did not answer the question because you don't have answers to the question. But I have answers to that questions, and I'm coming with a bigger value here to answer that question. Now, she said to you, how do you manage?
I like that you're looking out for me. Thank you.
Yeah. How do you manage the issues of fake news and all that? You did not really have answers to that question, and that question is not answerable by a layman understanding. It takes a programmer, it takes a software designer to answer that question. And here is what I've done. I have a software that can actually help you detect every keyword that has to do with Channels TV that is a fake news. So if somebody is trying to post something that is fake and it has to do with the keyword Channels TV, it's not going to post. It's not going to go anywhere. That's how I can fight that crime for you. Now you need me right now.
And the prize for the best business pitch goes to this gentleman in the red jacket.
Thank you very much. We'll consult you.
Would you like to? Okay. So anybody else have a question? Yes, the young lady with the glasses.
But don't forget that I said you have to rely on trust.
Right.
The brand, the people who have the brand, for you to serve as a reference point to see if it's fake news or not. I would have said that fake news would be very difficult to tackle, but since you have software, I will get to you before Google and the others get to you so that you can do the consultation for us.
There you go.
Good morning. Thank
Morning.
you both for your time and your contributions. So I have two questions. The first question is about the training academy, because I watched on channels that was opened in Abuja, and for us based in Lagos. So my vision is to one day have a channel, niche channel, just like the way channels is on news and current affairs. So I believe, listening to your story, being able to learn about broadcasting as a whole is very important. My background right now is in presenting and producing, and I can see Oscar here. Both of us have presented on Rock Minds. So that for me was a very good experience, because it was live television and so much happens on live TV compared to recorded TV. So for me, when are you going to do maybe classes, master classes, or open a branch in Lagos for future broadcast owners or broadcasters, or people just want to improve their skills? And then the second question.
Second has to be a quick one.
Yes, a very quick one. Is, will you be open to taking productions and programs from independent content producers when you open the other channels? So, for example, if you have an entertainment show, because I produce, will we be able to submit to channels?
Thank you very
Good
much.
questions.
Very quickly, Channels Academy is actually, I think we're starting the academy is launching in Lagos with our partners DW, the great broadcaster. So it's the very first set of training that would happen in the Lagos Academy, in Channels Academy Lagos. So you have an opportunity to go to that academy if you want to. That's one. Two, one of the things I said at the beginning of last year was that I'm trying to see how we can raise a new crop of broadcasters, as many as possible. And I promised the staff in channels that it's going to be the kind of legacy I'd like to leave. As we grow older, you're looking for some, kind of legacy to bequeath. So I'm looking for a new set of broadcasters who will carry the flag on, both within channels and outside channels. And so in trying to set up this multiple channels, just like DSTV, we're looking for people who will be able to provide programming, and people who will be willing and who can run a broadcast outfit. If you fit the bill, by all means apply. And if you bring your programs, what we also do in channels is to commission programs. We do a lot of commissioning now. So if you speak to us, we can actually pay you for your programs. Not only airtime. We're not just in the business of selling airtime. We actually have turned things around. We commission programs now, and we pay you for the programs. That's happening.
Do I have time for 2 more questions? Okay, I'm going to take that silence as a yes until I'm told otherwise. We'll keep going. Yes. Your question.
If we can make it 1-1, then
Okay.
we can take us.
Hello? Good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, sir. I really commend your sagacity that your speech, and it's very.
We can't hear you, sorry. Can you speak?
Good morning. I said I really appreciate your talk. I appreciate the sagacity in that talk, and it's really kind of emotional too. In fact, I would just say we share the same kind of background. But this is my question. My name is Azan Amobi. Amobi Azan. So this is my question is a bit kind of off channels question. As an entrepreneur that you are, I want to ask maybe if you will appreciate kind of other areas aside broadcasting. Like say, I'm an event planner.
Sorry, I'm losing you.
I said, as an entrepreneur that you are, I said, I want to ask, maybe you stick to that areas of broadcasting, or you can or you can accommodate ideas from other areas. Because I have like 2-3 proposals that is in the part of events, like take a big event like hosting Olympic or any big event that won't be done with just one kind of a company or little company like that. So it's very like a big, gigantic kind of a dream of a project. But that's the reason I said, will you be able to, accommodate such another lines of business that is not.
This is a very long question.
Yeah, I was actually struggling to understand what you were saying. If to which other line of business?
Say events.
Events.
What?
Events.
Events.
Yes.
Yeah. Events planning.
Yeah.
He said yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Event planning and management. That is hosting big events.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. If we'll be interested in it. Okay. The answer is yes. Look, we just finished our studios in Channels. If you come to Channels, you see that there's a big building standing, and it's a building containing 5 studios. On the ground floor is an amphitheater, which seats about 120 people. So we're going to be reviving our Channels Forum, which we stopped. If you remember the police college story, we stopped it at that time because there were security reports that we shouldn't go ahead with it. That's a long story. So events planning, why not? I love to do such things, but I'm thinking of farming, going into farming. So if you're also interested in that, yes, why not? But I forgot. Just remembered now that somebody asked me about radio, and I smiled. Yes, and I didn't answer that question. The answer is yes. We're going into radio.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm being told that we have to wrap up. I'm going to sneak in one very quick question, which they're going to be mad at me for. But
I have the mic. I have the mic, please.
Okay, the gentleman here, sorry, he's been had his hands up for a long time in the cream shirt. You have to make it a very quick question.
Hello.
This is the last question. If you can speak loudly, you can... Can we get him a mic very quick? Yes, okay. You have to make your question a quick question.
My name is Martin Chris Mwanaju. Considering the fact that the world has gone stages from the industrial revolution stage to the technological stage of life, we've advanced now to a level whereby you were saying, when I came, you were talking about the integration of artificial intelligence into Channels News. Now, the world going through all these stages have been able to manage employment in advanced countries and societies. I have an issue with artificial intelligence, even though the advantages are more than that unemployment issue. Are we going to be seeing the likes of Chamberlain on Sunrise, Mark Ogun? I watch them every morning before I go out and all that. Or are we going to be seeing some artificial intelligence,
some robots
and all that? I'll be asking questions. So my point is on.
So your question
on unemployment. How are you going to manage unemployment with artificial intelligence?
That's a very good question.
That's a good question because
that's an excellent question.
Yeah, that's a good question because in China, that's an issue where robotics in the production chain have taken over work. But I mean, there are some things that the robots can do. As far as artificial intelligence is concerned, yes, if you incorporate them, there might be some supposed redundancies that you can then make use of in other areas. But in our own case, what we want to be able to do is to make it determine who is watching, what they watch, how they watch, when they watch, and then predict what they want to watch in the future. It's like, what's going on online. The internet media has made it very vivid. These days, even when you have your phone on and you are chatting with somebody and you say something like Chicken Republic, in a few minutes, it pops up on your phone and you say, buy Chicken Republic for so and so. Somebody's listening to you. That's AI. How we incorporate it into channels is to see how we can enhance and improve our work so that people will better engage in other areas. So I can promise you, no, I don't want redundancies. For one, I don't like relieving people of their jobs because I believe that there are too many people who are unemployed, and I don't want to add to that problem.
Great. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this session, The Future of Media, with Chairman John Momoh. Can everybody give him a round of applause for me, please? Thank you so much. And do follow along online on Twitter, hashtag SMWLagos, hashtag SMW Broadcasting, at John Momoh, JOOMOOH, and at Claudine Moore. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.